Now let's take you to the United States, where voters are heading to the polls in less than a week for their midterm elections. Inflation and abortion are two of the top issues. According to the polls, Democrats are facing a stiff battle to keep hold of Congress. In Florida, President Biden warned voters that democracy is on the ballot. He was speaking at a campaign rally to drum up support for Charlie Crist, the Florida Democratic candidate for governor who's running against Ron DeSantis, the state's incumbent Republican governor. Mr. DeSantis is being tipped as a potential presidential candidate for his party in 2024.
Charlie's a guy you know and trust. He's always working with you, fighting for working families like yours. He was a great governor before, and they make him even greater governor again because of who he's going to be replacing. Folks, this ain't your father's Republican Party. This is a different breed of cat. Just look at the facts. When I took office, the economy was in ruins. This is not because of me, it's because of what I inherited.
President Biden, well, to look ahead to the midterm elections, let's speak to Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham, who joins me now live from Washington. Great to see you. Eric, just give us your overview of the way things are looking as we head towards those midterms.
Charles, we've got less than a week to go. And right now, what we're seeing is a massive push by both parties to try to capitalize on these 6 days remaining, with former presidents crisscrossing the country. And of course, the president himself, Joe Biden, will be delivering a speech this evening here in Washington, where he will address the issue of how these elections could impact democracy. But Charles, with all of what we're seeing in terms of former presidents, the current president speaking, one of the central questions that I have been asking is, where is the vice president? We have not seen Vice President Kamala Harris being an active and vocal voice on the campaign trail. She has not been in Georgia trying to drum up and get Black women excited to the polls. We haven't seen her in places like Detroit, Michigan, where Michigan is a battleground state where they're hoping to get Governor Gretchen Whitmer over the finish line, or in of Pennsylvania, where, of course, we know Philadelphia is home to a large African-American population. But with that being said, Charles, we are still seeing a robust turnout of Democratic voters in the early voting taking place, but also, too, other X factors that could shape what happens next week is we're still not clear what the fallout is in terms of what is happening with this latest incident with Paul Pelosi and the attack that just happened. While we do know that there have been many calling for tamping down on the rhetoric, will that actually increase the support by both Republicans or Democrats in these final days? Of course, only time will tell.
Well, that's a good point about Paul Pelosi, because I understand there are concerns about voter intimidation. But just moving beyond that, from the notes that we saw that you sent through earlier, Eric, are Republicans pouring large sums of money into key races? Does that suggest that they might be vulnerable to regaining Senate control?
Well, what we are seeing right now are Republicans are putting forth a very confident front that they believe that not only are they going to take control of the Senate, but they believe that they are going to get very close to a filibuster-proof control of the Senate, which means they believe that they could get very close to 60 Senate seats in the Senate. And but what belies what they are saying is we are still seeing enormous amounts of money being poured into places like Ohio, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, which suggests that maybe they are not as close as what they suggest. But also, Charles, on the flip side of that, right now, it's not necessarily about what polls are saying. It's about what actual voters are actually doing. And right now, what we're seeing is voters are actually going to the polls to vote. And we are seeing in those same states where Republicans are pouring tens of millions of dollars. In fact, they are already outpacing both the Democrats in those three states. What we are continuing to see is that Democrats are outpacing Republican voters at least in the early vote. Now, there is certainly the possibility that Republicans could wipe out those early gains on same day voting. It's certainly possible. But right now, what we're seeing is Democrats are continuing to extend that early vote lead. The question is, will the money that Republicans are pouring into those races, will it actually have an impact on the same day of actual voting?
Well, yeah, that's the big question. And talking about impact, the Latino vote appears to still be unknown. The Republicans suggesting that Latinos seem to be moving to the right. What's your assessment of that? We've got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. Republicans believe that they are making greater inroads with Latino voters than Democrats. In fact, we have heard from some of our sources with Latino organizations that they believe Democrats have not done enough. Where you certainly see it having an impact already, Charles, is in states like Arizona and Nevada. Of course, 2 states that could determine the outcome of who controls the Senate.
Eric, thanks ever so much. Eric Hammer, U.S. correspondent, and of course he'll be all over those midterms as they approach. He's talking to me there from Washington.